Well, hello. What is going on? Welcome back, Vibers. Welcome to the channel. So, we're about to get into this topic, and I've been wanting to talk about this for a while. In fact, I'm going to be working on a series talking about different types of cults, and I definitely want to get into this conversation with the Nation of Islam. So, the conversation is going to start here, but we're going over to our Viber Elisha space in order to finish the conversation. And let me make sure the redirect is set up because we're going to go over to her channel. I'm just going to give a bit of an introduction, but this is definitely a collaboration. So is everybody good? Everybody well? She says she here for part two. Okay, girl, we going to get into it then. All right, so let's make sure that the let's make sure that it goes the way that it's supposed to. As far as the redirect, I think she said she thinks she got it right. And let me make sure. But anyway, who knows anything about the Nation of Islam outside of it being a black Muslim organization, and whether or not they're Muslim or not for real, that is literally arguable. I have practiced Islam before in my life, and what I did note is that there is no sect of Islam that actually recognizes them as Muslims, and it has nothing to do with them being black Muslims. More so, it has a lot to do with the fact that they don't adhere to any of the practices that any of the Muslims do. Like, for instance, I went, and I don't know if we have any practicing Muslims in the audience, but like, I remember going to Mosque Miriam in Chicago, and at this time, again, I was a practicing Muslim, so I made salat or prayer 5 times a day, right? Can you imagine going to a mosque and it's time for prayer, and number one, there's no prayer, right? There's literally no call to prayer, the azan, so we didn't hear any of that. And when we asked, okay, so what's going on? Are we able to go pray? Nobody knew what we were talking about. So they had to like find a special room. And inside that special room, Elisha, I don't know if you got the shut up, Wayne. Elisha, I don't know if you got the link or not, but also it looks like you got the link. Also, it doesn't look like you did the redirect right because I don't see it. So I might have to make sure you guys, we might have to drop her link in the chat because I'm not sure if she knows how to do the redirect. But anyway, when they found a place for us to go and pray, it was weird, y'all. When it was like, we're at the mosque, that's where you're supposed to pray. First of all, I've never been in a mosque where you're allowed to wear shoes, right? So that was weird because we come in the door like making sure you take off your shoes. As soon as you get to the mosque, there's a spot where you take off the shoes. Okay. So Elijah's here. Let me bring her up. Hey Elijah.
Hey,
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Awesome. So I was just letting them know what we're going to be talking about. I was giving a little bit of introduction to the conversation and letting them know that we're going to finish up over on your channel. Okay. Elisha is a Viber. We did a couple of collabs. It's been good. And I was just explaining to them my experience visiting Mosque Miriam in Chicago. So the first thing that I noticed that was different was that going into the mosque, no one had to take their shoes off, right? And for some people, this is just kind of like technical stuff, but okay, no shoes off. But then when it was time for prayer, our phones are going off to remind us, and there was no azan, meaning there was no call to prayer. And y'all know that's the one thing the Muslims do. They're going, 5 times a day, they're going to be facing Mecca praying. And so we had to ask, okay, so where do we pray? And it was weird because we thought that we were in the place that you're supposed to pray. And so they went around looking for a place for us to pray. Finally, they took us into this room through the kitchen. And inside that room, it was a green carpet. It wasn't necessarily the type of carpets that you see in mosque, but it was a green carpet, and there was a throne. There was a throne inside that room. Now, I don't know what that throne was for or who sat in that throne or what was happening, but that was weird. That was weird. But I just wanted to start off getting into this whole situation with the Nation of Islam. So most of us are familiar with the Nation through Malcolm X. The Malcolm X assassination, and then, the rumors of secret children of Elijah Muhammad, or even the mysterious identity of Fard Muhammad, who is the guy who he's Pakistani, but he looks white. And a lot of people see him that's their, I think that's supposed to be God or supposed to be Allah. And but I want to know, as we get into this and we get over on Elijah's channel, was this just a religious movement or was this a full-blown cult? So we're going to head over to Elijah's space, get into the topic. Let me put Elijah's channel in the chat. And Elijah, you can go ahead and drive until we get into it.
Okay, you want me to talk until we get over?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So my background is a little bit different. When I was a kid, my mother is Christian and my father is Muslim. And this was around the time, when they were doing the marches and all of that. It was the time of, that when there were the freedom fighters and all of those things that were coming up. And so my mom, she left, well, I won't say she left the church, but she took a vacation from the church and was with my dad when it comes to those things, because she's also an activist. She's very involved in or at least at that time, she was very involved in the community and all those other things. And so from the time I was a little girl, and so what my parents had agreed upon is that they would leave things open. So in other words, they weren't going to it was me and my brother, and they weren't going to tell us what religion we were going to be. They were going to expose us to both religions. And there was a lot of things that went on. Now, a throne, I don't know, Nyla. Maybe there was a throne. I don't know. The things that kind of stood out to me
No, it was definitely a throne where we saw, but it wasn't like it was in because where they sent us to pray was like, it was like a room where there was just stuff. Now the stuff that was in there was a throne in there. So it didn't seem like it was a room that people were in all the time. Because literally they're like, okay, what are we going to do with these praying Muslims in the mosque? And so it was like off of the kitchen. And so the throne didn't seem like it was something. It was like a room with there were boxes, there were other stuff, and it just so happened to be a throne in there. And it was just weird that there was a throne in there to us.
One of the things that they do is every time you go in, they pat you down. And I always felt like that was weird, because you're a little kid. I was a little kid and I would get patted down like I had a weapon or something. That was strange to me.
Yeah.
I never remember us taking off our shoes unless we were visiting somebody's house that was part of the mosque. So I feel like what the Nation of Islam has done is like maybe they've taken like pieces of different sects of what they liked about Islam, and then they formed their own Islam. And when Elijah Muhammad had first started and forming that, he wanted to create a version of Islam that was just primarily for the Black community.
Mm-hmm.
Problem is, I don't think they were prepared for, or their mindset, yeah, you're right. I'm about to touch on that, really. Their mindset was about Blacks in poverty, they didn't think of like maybe blacks could be educated or blacks could be like the stereotypical. So a lot of times they're not like it I don't want to say use the word surprise because I think they've evolved since then to a degree, but they don't know how to handle there's like a because of the poverty mindset, I think that they have, they don't respond well if you come from a place of wealth or abundance. And so I think that's a big problem that they have as well.
So I can definitely say that I agree with your assessment of him wanting to create a version of Islam for specifically for blacks. I know that from a very real perspective. Let me explain. By the way, I went to try to redirect and you haven't set the permissions for redirection.
Okay, hold on a minute.
So
Let me figure this out.
yeah, yeah. So
Sorry,
so I'll
y'all.
go
I'm
ahead.
still learning. So
Yeah, that's okay. So, how I got introduced to his version of Islam. Well, I got introduced to his version of Islam first. I never was never interested in the nation, but I was fascinated, like most people were, because of the Malcolm X affiliation, right? But I used to be Muslim, and I went to what is the oldest, I think it's supposed to be the first mosque in America, and that was an Ahmadiyya mosque. And it was on the south side of Chicago, and they had this thing called Buy It, right? That you would
mhm.
sign, kind of like when you join a church, you become like a member of the church roll or whatever. And one of the people there was like giving me the history of the mosque and who had came through there and all this kind of stuff. And lo and behold, they showed me where Elijah Muhammad had actually signed by it and had joined that mosque, right? At one point. And I was like, wow, so he was here first? And it was like, yeah, he was here. Now off Ashland. This mosque is actually on 44th and Wabash, like 44th and Wabash.
We would go to
Uh,
44th and Wabash all the time when I was a kid, like around Ramadan. We would go
uh-huh.
there with my dad and my
Hmm.
stepmother. We would go down there. hmm
Yeah, it's
We might have
the
seen each other, and not knowing who we were.
could have. The name of the mosque was Al Sadiq.
Uh-huh.
And it's actually 44, yeah, 44th and Wabash, 44, 48th Wabash, and it's been there since 1922. That's when that mosque there. So it's like literally the first mosque in the city of Chicago. So he signed by it there, and I guess he was there and he excelled in his studies, and I guess they considered him pious and all of this kind of stuff. And in Ahmadiyya, they have what we call Caliphate. And Caliphate, instead of getting really deep into it, but just think of they have a Khalifa, which could be considered like a pope, like how the Catholics have a pope. So they have a Khalifa, right? And so Elijah Muhammad wanted them to split up the mosque between Black people and everyone else. Now, most of the people there were Pakistani, by the way, but he wanted to split them up because he wanted to be the Khalifa over the Black people. And so they did not agree to that because the belief was that, everybody's equal. We're not separating by race and all this kind of stuff. Now, them being Pakistani, keep that in your mind because a lot of the people there were Pakistani, right? Fast forward to Fard Muhammad, the guy who you often see the photograph of holding the book on the side with the straight hair. Most of the photos are in black, white. Wallace Fard Muhammad, right? He's the founder of the Nation of Islam. So when you go into a nation, you're not really, and by the way, this guy was at one point like a used carpet seller or something like this. This dude was a con. He was an inmate. He was full of it. He's Pakistani actually. A lot of people think he's white, but he's actually Pakistani. And he belonged to Ahmadiyya, the same sect of Islam that I was affiliated with when he was in Pakistan. So he took a lot of their teachings, got with Elijah Muhammad, and turned it black.
Mhm.
So yeah, so that's the part that I know. Were you able to fix the redirection?
I think so.
Okay, let me check and see. I don't think so because it's not popping up yet. Let me see.
Let me look again.
Okay, I got it. It's there now.
All right. Okay.
Okay, cool. It's there now. All right. So I set the redirect. We are going to go over to Elisha's. I'm going to put the link in the chat, but when we end, we're going to be teleported. There'll be a button right there. All you have to do is hit go and you'll be in the chat. So we're going over there. I definitely need you guys to come over. This is our Viber. We need to run these numbers up, get the likes over there, get some watch time, and she has good content. She is a therapist. She's got a lot of good stuff over there, and we're about to get into this stuff. So I'm about to end the stream over here. Get on over to Elisha's space as soon as we end. All right. So let me put a link in the chat. I believe I did put it. It's pinned, and it's going to teleport you anyway when we end the stream. I see you guys in minutes.